Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. This time we're diving into something really relevant, I think, to everyone. Communication skills.
It is relevant to every.
It's one of those things that we all think we're pretty good at,
Right.
but then the more you learn about it, you're like, oh, maybe I'm not as good at this as I thought I was.
Yeah, it's deceptively complex,
It is.
and you can always get better.
You can always get better, and that's what's exciting about it.
Exactly.
So we asked you guys to send in some materials that you're looking at to improve your communication skills.
Yeah, what have you been reading, watching, listening to?
Exactly. Give us those resources so we can do a deep dive on them. And you sent in a really interesting mix.
Yeah, we did get a lot of really fascinating stuff.
We got articles, research.
Personal anecdotes even, which I love.
Ooh, personal anecdotes are the best.
Yeah, they really bring it to life.
Yeah. So it seems like you're serious about upping your communication game.
That's great. I love that our listeners are so invested in this.
And it's smart. It's a good thing to be invested in.
Absolutely. Because when you improve your communication, you improve really every area of your life.
It's true. It's not just about how you speak in public, right?
No, not at all.
It's how you talk to your partner,
Your kids,
your kids, your boss, the person at the grocery store,
the barista, yeah. Every interaction.
your plants even.
Okay, maybe not your plants.
Although I do talk to my plants.
I mean, I do too, but I'm not expecting a response.
That's fair. But it is interesting how, even with something like gardening, being able to effectively communicate, like, what your plants need.
Right, understanding their signals.
Right. It all kind of ties back.
It's all connected.
It is all connected. And you know what's interesting about the material that you sent in for this deep dive is that it goes beyond the surface level.
Yeah, it's not just the basics.
Right. You're not just interested in, like, speaking clearly. It seems like you really want to understand the nuances of connection.
The psychology of it all.
Yes. The how and the why behind effective communication.
I like that, the how and the why. We should use that.
Write that down. But yeah, I mean, one article you shared, I think it was in Psychology Today, really caught my eye.
Oh, yeah. Which one was that?
It talked about how our nonverbal cues can completely change how our message is received.
Oh, that's so true. We often focus so much on what to say
Right.
that we forget about how we're saying it.
The delivery?
Yes, the delivery, the body language, the tone, it's all part of the message.
It's like that saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although I do think the what matters too.
Oh, for sure. But you get the point.
I do. So tell me, did any of those specific nonverbal cues in that article stand out to you?
Oh, definitely. The example about mirroring body language to build rapport was fascinating.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So like subtly matching someone's posture or hand gestures.
Right. Like, I never realized how powerful something so subtle could be.
It's like you're speaking their language without saying a word.
That's a great way to put it. It's
Yeah.
like this unspoken understanding that can develop.
Exactly. And that actually ties into a point from your notes about active listening.
Oh, right. Yeah, I underlined a section about focusing on the speaker's eyes.
Yes. And not just making eye contact, but actually paying attention to subtle cues like pupil dilation.
People what?
Dilation, it's like when your pupils get bigger or smaller.
Oh, right. I had no idea that was even a thing.
Oh, yeah. It can indicate engagement, interest, even emotional response.
Wow, I completely missed that detail. See, this is why I love these deep dives.
Me too. There's always something new to discover.
It seems like becoming a better communicator is as much about observation as it is about action.
100%. It's about being present, paying attention to those nonverbal cues.
So it's not just about becoming aware of our own body language, but also becoming more adept at reading the body language of others.
Exactly. It's like becoming a communication detective.
I love that.
Mm.
We should get you a detective hat and a magnifying glass.
Let's not get carried away. But I like where your head's at.
All right, deal.
Yeah.
No detective gear for you.
But speaking of detectives, that kind of awareness, that observation, it's essential for building empathy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because empathy was another major theme in the materials you chose for us to go through.
It's a big one. And for good reason. Empathy is at the heart of truly connecting with others.
Okay, so let's dive into that. Empathy. It seems like one of those things that everyone talks about.
Right, like be more empathetic.
But actually putting it into practice, that's a whole other story.
It's easier said than done, for sure. What struck you about the way your source material tackled empathy? It can be really hard to actually step outside of yourself and really try to see things from another person's point of view.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own heads,
Totally.
our own experiences.
And we want to offer solutions, right? Like,
Right.
oh, I had a problem like that, and here's what you should do.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so guilty of that.
It's a natural impulse.
It is, but it's not always helpful, is it?
No, not always. One of your articles actually framed it in a really interesting way. It talked about how when people are struggling, what they often need most is to just feel heard and understood.
More than they need advice.
Exactly. They don't necessarily want you to fix it for them. They just want to know that you get it, that you're really listening.
Oh, that's so true. I know I've definitely been guilty of jumping into problem-solving mode
Yeah.
when someone's just trying to share their feelings, and I bet I've probably made them feel unheard by doing that.
It happens. But, this article, it offered a simple but powerful technique. Instead of offering solutions, try reflecting back what you're hearing.
Oh, okay, so like paraphrasing.
Kind of, but not just parroting their words back to them, but more like summarizing the emotions you're picking up on.
Okay, I see.
So, for example, instead of saying, well, maybe you could try this, you might say something like, it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated and overwhelmed right now.
Oh, that's so much more powerful than just saying something generic like, I understand, which, let's be honest, can sometimes feel like you're not really listening at all.
Exactly. It can even feel dismissive, like you're just trying to end the conversation.
Right, but when someone actually names the emotion you're feeling, it's like,
Validating.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It makes you feel seen.
Exactly. And when someone feels truly heard, that's when real connection can happen. Now, another fascinating thing that emerged from your materials was the connection between self-awareness and effective communication.
Oh, yeah. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. Like before you can effectively communicate with others, you need to understand
You
yourself.
need to know what's in your own cup.
Yes. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my tendencies?
Precisely. And you actually highlighted a section in one of the articles, I think it was from Harvard Business Review, about identifying your communication style.
Oh, right. Yeah, there was this quiz.
Yes, the communication style quiz. Did you take it?
I did take it. I'm not going to tell you what I got yet, though.
Oh, come on. Don't leave me hanging.
Okay, fine. I'm more on the collaborative side. Like, I like to make sure everyone feels heard and that we can reach a decision together.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But sometimes I do wonder if I could be a little bit more assertive, especially, in situations where I really need to advocate for myself or my ideas.
Well, that's the beauty of self-awareness, right? You've recognized that.
That it's something I can work on.
Exactly.
So it's about recognizing our strengths and weaknesses as communicators and then using that knowledge to be more effective.
Right. You got it. Were there any specific strategies in the materials that resonated with you in terms of bridging that gap between our natural style and what a situation demands?
Let's see. Oh, there was one article that talked about the power of asking questions, especially if you tend to be more reserved in group settings.
Oh, that's a good one. I love that strategy.
Right. It's a way to engage in a conversation without feeling pressured to have all the answers.
And it shows that you're genuinely interested in the other person's perspective.
Exactly. Because sometimes you don't have the answers.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It's more than okay. It's an opportunity to learn from others.
Yes. Love that. Okay, so switching gears a little bit.
Yeah.
When I think about communication, I often think about those make or break moments. Like presentations, job interviews, difficult conversations.
The high stakes stuff.
Yes, exactly. Did your research offer any insights on navigating those situations? Because those are the ones where I tend to get really in my head.
Oh, absolutely. And, it emphasized something that I think often gets overlooked in the heat of the moment, and that is that preparation is key.
Okay, but preparation for what specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we can anticipate every word that's going to be said in a
Oh,
conversation.
right. Of course not. But you can prepare your mindset and your emotional state.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. One of the articles suggested practicing mindfulness techniques before a big meeting or a presentation, even just like a few minutes of deep breathing, can help calm your nerves and help you show up as your most confident self.
It's about managing that inner critic,
Yeah.
that voice of self-doubt.
Yes, exactly. Because when you feel calm and grounded, you're more likely to communicate clearly and confidently. And that confidence, it's contagious.
Oh, that's so true. I've definitely been in situations where, someone's like really calm demeanor has kind of rubbed off on me and helped me feel more at ease.
It's like they're setting the tone for the whole interaction.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about empathy, we've talked about self-awareness, we've talked about high-stakes communication.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have them. But there's one more aspect of communication that I want to touch on, and that is navigating different communication styles.
Oh, yes. That's a big one.
It's huge
Yeah.
because it seems like everyone has their own unique way of interacting.
Right. Absolutely. And one of your articles actually framed it so beautifully. It said that effective communication isn't about trying to change anyone's style, but rather about becoming fluent in different communication dialects.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So it's like being multilingual. The more dialects you understand.
The better you can connect with people from different backgrounds and perspectives.
Okay, yes,
Mhm.
I'm fully on board with that. So what are some of these communication dialects that we should be aware of?
Well, for example, some people are very direct in their communication, while others might prefer a more nuanced approach.
Right, like some people are going to tell you exactly what they're thinking.
Super filter.
Exactly. Whereas other people might kind of like dance around the subject a little bit.
Exactly. And neither way is right or wrong, but it's helpful to be aware of those differences so you can avoid misunderstandings.
Right. So it's about recognizing that there's no one right way to communicate, but rather about understanding and adapting to the nuances of each interaction.
You've got it. And that requires flexibility, a willingness to step outside of our comfort zones, and a genuine curiosity about other people's perspectives.
It's like that growth mindset in action. Always be learning, always be adapting.
Exactly. Oh, you know what this makes me think about?
What's that?
Feedback. We've talked about giving and receiving feedback effectively. I'm curious, what did your deep dive reveal about that?
Oh, that's a good one. Because feedback is so important, but it can also be so tricky to navigate, both on the giving and receiving end.
For sure, for sure. Well, one article offered a really simple but profound reframing of feedback.
Oh,
It suggested that instead of viewing it as criticism, we should think of feedback as a gift.
a gift. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. How so?
Because when someone takes the time to offer us feedback, even if it's difficult to hear, they're essentially giving us a roadmap for growth and improvement. They're seeing something in us that we might not be able to see in ourselves.
That's such a good point. Like, it's easy to get defensive when someone's pointing out our flaws or our mistakes.
Oh, totally.
But if you can kind of shift your mindset to see it as, like, they're actually trying to help you.
Yeah, they're on your
They
team.
want you to succeed.
Exactly. It's about shifting from defensiveness to openness and a desire to learn. Now, on the flip side, when you're giving feedback, the article emphasized the importance of being specific, constructive, and above all, kind.
Okay, so it's not just about, like, unleashing all of your frustrations on someone.
No, it's about being thoughtful, choosing your words carefully.
So it's about focusing on the behavior, not the person.
Right. Exactly. So, for example, instead of saying something like, "You always interrupt me, you might try," I noticed that during our conversation earlier, I felt like I wasn't able to fully share my thoughts because I was interrupted a few times.
Oh, okay. So it's about framing your feedback in a way that's less accusatory and more focused on the impact of the behavior.
You got it. It's about being a communication collaborator, not a communication critic.
Ooh, I like that.
Write that down. But speaking of collaboration, your materials also highlighted the increasingly important role of digital communication in how we connect and collaborate, especially in the workplace.
Oh, absolutely. Email, instant messaging, video conferencing, these tools have become indispensable. I mean, I don't know what I would do without Slack.
I hear you. It's how we get work done these days.
Right. But these tools, as amazing as they are, they also come with their own unique set of communication challenges.
Right, because you're missing that face-to-face interaction.
Exactly. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, is the lack of nonverbal cues.
Oh, 100%. We rely on those so heavily in face-to-face interactions.
Right. Like you can't hear a smile over the phone.
And you can't see a raised eyebrow in
Mm.
an email.
Exactly. So without those subtle cues, it's so easy for tone and intent to be misinterpreted.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
Misunderstandings, conflicts, it can spiral really quickly.
It can, and that's why it's so crucial to be extra mindful of our words and how they might be perceived when we're communicating digitally. Would you agree?
Absolutely. So what are some strategies for ensuring that our digital communication is clear, concise, and most importantly, respectful? What gems did you uncover in your deep dive?
Well, so many great strategies, but one of the simplest, I think most effective, is just taking that extra moment to reread your emails and messages before hitting send.
Oh, that's such good advice. I am so bad about that.
It's so easy to just fire off a quick reply, especially when you're juggling a million things.
Right, or you're feeling emotional about something.
Exactly.
Right.
But taking that extra beat to just kind of review your tone, check for clarity.
Make sure you didn't say anything that you're going to regret later.
Exactly. It can make a world of difference in how your message is received.
Yeah, it's like taking that extra beat to practice what we preach about mindful communication, even in like the digital realm, right?
Precisely. And another suggestion that really resonated with me was about being mindful of our audience when we're communicating digitally.
Oh, right. So like, just like in person, you wouldn't use the same language or tone with your boss as you would with like your best friend.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that context matters.
Right. It's like reading the virtual room, so to speak.
I like that. Okay, so beyond email and messaging,
Yeah,
the rise of video conferencing, that adds like a whole other layer, right?
it does. Video calls. What a world we live
I
in.
know. What are your thoughts on video conferencing? Have you found any strategies that help?
Oh, definitely. One article had a tip that I've actually started implementing myself,
Oh, yeah.
treating video calls more like in-person meetings.
Interesting. What does that look like for you?
So like being fully present, not checking my phone or like sorting through papers.
Right, so minimizing distractions.
Yeah. And then also dressing appropriately, you know, like I'm not going to wear my pajamas.
Right. It's about showing respect for the interaction and for the people that you're connecting with, even if it's through a screen.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we've covered so much ground today.
We have. It's been a whirlwind.
It has been a communication whirlwind. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something that you mentioned earlier, storytelling.
Oh, yes. Storytelling. Such a powerful tool.
So powerful. So you mentioned that your research highlighted its power in communication. Can you unpack that a bit more? Because I'm fascinated by how a well-told story can just like captivate an audience.
It's a bit magical, isn't it?
It is.
Well, one of the articles I read actually dove into like the neuroscience behind storytelling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it turns out that our brains are actually wired to respond to narratives.
Interesting.
When we hear a story, our brains release oxytocin.
Isn't that the cuddle hormone?
It is. It's the hormone that promotes connection and empathy. It's like when we hear a story, we step into the storyteller's shoes and experience the world through their eyes.
So we connect with them on a deeper level.
Exactly. And that's why storytelling is such a powerful tool, not just for entertainment, but for communication, persuasion, leadership, all of it.
Right. It's about connecting with people on a heart level, not just a head level.
You got it. Okay, so as we kind of synthesize everything we've talked about today, from the nuances of body language to the power of active listening to this idea of storytelling, what's striking me is that effective communication really boils down to one fundamental principle:
Okay, I'm listening. What's that?
being human.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. It's about remembering that we're all just humans trying to connect with each other, to understand and be understood.
And sometimes we mess it up.
We do.
Well,
We all
yeah.
do. But that's okay. It's about the intention, right?
What's about the effort?
Exactly. When we approach communication with that spirit of humanity, with empathy, authenticity, a genuine desire to connect, we create the conditions for truly meaningful interactions.
That is beautifully said. It seems like you've given our listeners a lot to think about today. Practical tips, insightful strategies, and like a whole new perspective on what it means to be a truly effective communicator.
My pleasure. And remember, communication is a journey, not a destination.
Ooh, another good one.
Write that down. But seriously, it's an ongoing process of learning, growth, and connection.
Beautifully said. Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep those conversations flowing.